Let's talk about Frank Lampard, because he is the new manager of Coventry City. It's been announced in the last few minutes. He's going to sign a 2.5-year deal. He's going to take charge of the game against Coventry at the weekend. There'll be a press conference later today. He's taking his former assistant manager from Everton, Joe Edwards, with him as well. How imperative is it that we, England, get a coaching success, an English coaching success? Bearing in mind all the discussions that we had when Thomas Tuchel was appointed as the England manager, how important is it?
Is it? I mean, listen. To what end? To having a successful national side?
To having successful pool of English coaches, so that the next time we have to replace the England manager, there is more choice for the FA.
Yeah, in an ideal world, I think a lot of people believe that it's very important. You know, people believe that if you have to qualify for your country, you have to be from that country. Then to manage that country, the same thing should apply. I'm not entirely in that camp. I see the merits of that argument, but I think that the reasons why our Premier League is a global success has very little to do with the fact that it's actually English. It's to do with the fact that ultimately it's become such a phenomenon because we have so much overseas investment, so much overseas talent, and so much overseas development of it. And then, of course, it's caught fire, and every other league around the world envies it. So from a point of view of what's it doing to our game, from a purist point of view, do you want us to have the best English coaches with the best English players leading the best English team? Well, we haven't won. We have, embarrassingly, we have not won, as we well know, a major tournament or any tournament as a national team for 60 years. It's embarrassing when you actually put it down and distill it into what it's not English entitlement. It's the case of the fact that, even with due respect, the Greeks have won a tournament in 2004. Well,
before Spain won the European Championships in 2008, they had the same sort of thing. They were going through the same discussion as us. It was not Spanish entitlement. So they wanted to win, like we want to win.
And they fixed it.
They did.
And they resolved it, and then they continue to fix it.
And they did that
keep
by
on fixing
the youth teams and winning as youth teams, and then progress that through to the seniors. England have sort of done that.
Possibly.
Now they need to get onto the next level,
Possibly.
Right?
I mean, ultimately, we've seen that evolution of Gareth Southgate, ironically being offered the job. The myth is that he took the job because Sam Allardyce got himself caught in a cleft position. Now, he turned the job down first. He was offered the job before Sam Allardyce was offered the job. And then he took it after Sam Allardyce, found himself in a difficult position. And, of course, he went to what he knew, which is the young kids, because that's what you do. If you put a lawyer in charge of a business, you'll end up in court. If you put a 21 manager in charge of the national side, you'll get young players in your first team. The fact we didn't cross the line, the fact that people make the argument we've done a lot better, is true. In an ideal world, yes. In the real world, I'm a little bit ambivalent about it. I think that as long as the domestic...
But you like Frank. You want him to succeed, don't you?
I want him to succeed if he's good enough to succeed. I don't want him to succeed because I liked him as a player and I think he's a very personable fellow. I want people to be good enough. I think this industry sometimes indulges people and rewards mediocrity.
Does it tell you something about him, though? Because he doesn't have to work. He really wants to do it. I spoke to Graham Souness about this, and he was keen on giving him or trying to advocate for him for the Rangers job because he felt that he'd met a guy who was hungry to achieve something.
Well, I mean, look, I'm a commercial animal. So I work alongside people that have made hundreds of millions of pounds, that don't have to do another thing in their life, that get out of bed every single morning. I just mentioned one this morning in Theopathetis, that have made all the money in the world, 10 times what Frank Lampard's ever made. Get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, go run big businesses. So to me, when I hear the analysis, well, he doesn't have to do it, it shows the hunger. Well, I don't respond to it the way that other people might respond to it, because I think that's a prerequisite of being an alpha, of being someone that's a self-starter. If you were someone that was successful in life, there's a certain characteristic, a certain gene that you have that will drive you anyway. So it's a presumed and almost assumed outcome. Now, whether he can turn that into a successful manager, I've written a piece about him in the Mail today, thinking that I thought he was going to be a very good manager. I thought the first year at Chelsea was okay, but I thought we should have stayed at Derby. I know it's going to be very easy for me to say that because Chelsea came calling, the opportunity comes knocking. Everybody in life that's got a modicum of success will be given opportunities. It's about taking the right ones. And I felt that he should have stayed at Derby, learned his trade. Now, of course, no one could forecast what was going to happen with Mel Morris a year down the line. So maybe history doesn't look kindly upon that observation. But going to Chelsea and making the mistakes that he did in the second time he was there, and I also felt that when he was at Everton, they would have got relegated if they hadn't have taken him out and put Sean Dyche in. I think he's back in the Championship. A lot of people are arguing about the fact, well, how does he get another go? Why is he getting another turn? He's been a failure in his last few jobs. I think it's reasonable to put him in a championship club because he's proven to a reasonable level that he can operate at that level. So going into Coventry, who've got lofty ambitions, they've got an owner that's been in the playoffs, felt they should have been in the playoffs last year and was, ultimately a centimetre away from being in an FA Cup final. You're in a situation where they want upward movement. So, I'm not interested in the Frank Lampard show. I'm not interested in the media alighting upon Coventry or Plymouth because Rooney happens to be at Plymouth or Lampard happens to be at Coventry. These guys either got the chops to deliver for these football clubs that have upward-only motivations, or they don't.
Well, certainly Mark Robins showed that he did, and he delivered great success, really, relatively, for Coventry City up until
very difficult
a point
periods as well,
in difficult periods, and a lot of fans are very still much aligned to him and pro him. Christian's a Coventry City fan, big fan of Mark Robins, but what do you think about Frank Lampard coming into the club?
Hi guys, firstly, to be honest, I think it's quite a good appointment. Like you said there, I was very much pro Robins and I loved him to stay. But at the end of the day, for one reason or another, it wasn't working. As Simon said then, Dirk obviously has ambitions and has sort of the place he wants the club to go to. And I think Lampard, with his experience with Derby, which he probably got further than he should have with that team, I don't think it's a bad appointment, to be honest. I think, he's going to get the opportunity. I do think it's last chance saloon for him, but he's got an owner behind him that's going to back him.
Does it infuse you that he is so desperate to be a manager and wants to work, and he's desperate to make a success of it?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, financially he doesn't need it, and I'm of the age of, he was one of the the big England players while I was growing up as a teenager. So he's very much, I wouldn't say an idol, but he's very much a name that means something to me on a national level, if that makes sense. But he's proven that he can work with youngsters. His fan management is very good. What he did at Chelsea first time round with the transfer embargo, it wouldn't have been easy for anybody. Second time round, he should never have gone there. I don't think anybody could have gone there and done anything at that point. So, look, I think as Coventry fans, we're very good fans. Maybe that's biased. Our away support's fantastic. And I think we just all need to get behind Frank and give him exactly the same support as we gave Robins. And, yeah, hopefully...
What does he have to deliver this season?
I think for us, the Championship, it's one of them, isn't it? You're always only 3 or 4 games away from being back in the mix. So, as a fan, I'd love it if we can try and push to get towards playoffs again. But if we finish sort of top half just outside of that, I don't think it'd be a disaster.
Okay.
You just start again.
Cheers, Christian. Appreciate your call. Trying to get through to as many as we can. 03717223344. Nick is a Chelsea fan in Devon. You're through to Simon Jordan. What do you want to say?
Morning, guys. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks.
Good. I just we love Frank Lampard at Chelsea. He's one of ours. He's a legend. He's our all-time top goal scorer. If I was advising Frank, I'd say make this your last chance, and if you prove yourself, then I really, really hope he does it. He's a lovely fella. Simon's alluded to it. He's a lovely fella. Doesn't always make the best manager or best coach. I think this might be his last chance. Go prove yourself at Coventry, and if you start doing well, don't do what you did at Derby. Don't jump ship. Give it some time. Prove yourself, and then the world's your oyster. You're a young man. If you prove yourself here, who knows what happens in the Premier League and in the future?
I would have thought that would have been a fundamental request from the owner coming in, because if he's not, he will have been aware. Like we were saying the same thing, which is that that Frank going from Derby was probably the wrong move, albeit the opportunity was there for him because he was such a Chelsea stalwart. Going to Coventry won't have been his ideal move. It won't be on his utopian list of things. I would wonder who I could manage in my career. Coventry. Great club, great opportunity, and an ambitious owner. And I think the owner probably would have crossed that bridge and would have said to him, listen, I'm not bringing you in here. So if you do well with me in a year's time, you suddenly get your eyes batted at by someone else, or you start batting your eyes at someone else, you're off out the door. It'd be interesting to see who he brings as his coaching staff, because there seemed to be a lot of noise out of the owner, which I thought was slightly strange, about the coaching requirements and how Mark Robins had fallen out with a long-time assistant manager. And as a result of that, they'd got the assistant manager had left and not been replaced. And it seemed to be that Doug King was indicating that somehow or another that might have been the major problem, and that they hadn't fixed it for the manager, when really and truly the manager should be recruiting his own assistant manager and his own team. And it'd be interesting to see if Frank's going to bring him with him.
He's brought in, I can tell you, Joe Edwards, who I mentioned earlier on, who he knows very well from his Chelsea days. Joe Edwards worked through the Chelsea Academy. He's worked with England. He was the under-20s manager for a little while. Chris Jones, who's been part of the England setup as one of the fitness coaches and coaches, is alongside the two of them as well. They've all worked together at pretty much all the jobs. I think Joe didn't go to Derby with him, but was at Chelsea, went to Everton, been with England. He was the Millwall manager for a little while. He was the youngest Millwall manager in his history. Well, it did actually start brilliantly. They beat Coventry 4-0, I think, on his debut, but they went downhill very quickly from there.
Ultimately, we can all have moments in the sun, can't we? But it's about the longer situation.
But he's a well thought of coach, actually, Joe Edwards, and so is
but
Chris
I mean,
Jones.
I always think that I think in order to be successful, you as a manager and slightly younger manager, you need a good assistant manager. You need a good, experienced, very rounded, very philosophical, circumspect assistant manager, and I think that's potentially something that Frank has not had previously and doesn't look like he's going to have currently. We'll see.
You have your man. How do you feel about it, Coventry fans? 03717 223344. That's the number to call if you want to react to the news that Coventry City have appointed Frank Lampard this morning.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.